I would like to read the 10 offenses to the holy name, which are to avoid it, written by Srila Vyasadeva in the Padma Purana. Number 1, to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating the holy name of the Lord. Number 2, to consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3, to disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4, to blaspheme the Vedic scripture or scripture in pursuance to the Vedic version. 5, to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be an imagination. 6, to give some interpretation to the holy name of the Lord. 7, to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name. 8, to consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious Riddlic activities which are offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities, karma kanda. 9, to instruct a faithless person about the glories of the holy name. 10, to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name and to maintain material attachment even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must guard against these offenses in order to achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Once again, I thank everyone for joining the Bhakti Sangha conference call today. Let us move to our next session, which is Srimad Bhagavatam class. May I know who have joined the call this morning?
Hare Krishna, Vandana Mataji, Navrat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai, Priti Dasi from Charlotte. Hare Krishna. Nice background, Mataji. Radhe Radhe.
Hare Krishna, Priti Mataji, Dhanvat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, Dhanvat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. This is Arvind Das from Chicago. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Arvind Prabhuji, Dhanvat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj, all glories to Radha Madhav. Please accept my humble obeisance to you and respectful devotees. I am Chalana Lakshmi Parameshwar. Thank you very much and Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanvat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vardhana Mataji, Dhanvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Vinita Gandharvika Devidasi from Texas. Mataji, you look so beautiful with that background.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika Mataji, Dhanvat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna. See you
Hare
soon.
Krishna, Mataji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharajis. My humble obeisances to you and all the devotees. This is Krishna Kumari Devidasi from Raleigh.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Kumari Mataji, Dhanvat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Mataji, you are coming to Sadhu Sangha. That's why you are saying see you soon? Okay,
Yes,
okay.
Mataji.
Oh, very nice. We'll meet, Mataji.
Yes, sure.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandvat Pranam, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Neetu from Baltimore.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanvat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna. Is anybody else would like to introduce themselves?
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranams, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Guranga. This is Sri Stapanashat Devidasi.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanvat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vandana Mataji. This is Kamala Kedasi from Baltimore. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj and all the devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Kamadiki Mataji, Dhanvat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call every day. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Vardhana Mataji. Hare Krishna Vardhana Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. This is Sangeeta Ramya from Sharjah.
Hare Krishna Anitaramya Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Vardhana Mataji, Dandavat Pranam, Srila Prabhupada. This is Shri Dasi from Charlotte.
Hare Krishna Sham Gauri Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, for joining the call. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, beautiful picture, Mataji.
Can we start recording? Welcoming all of you to the Bhakti Sangha conference call. Today we are very fortunate to have His Grace Balaram Shakti Prabhuji. Prabhuji is going to enlighten us on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, 14th chapter, verse 57 to 61. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for giving your valuable time and association to us this morning and enlightening on the topic of Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll hand over the call to you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mataji. Let us start. Okay. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So thank you all very much for joining today's session. So today we'll be completing the 14th chapter of 6th canto. The story of Chitraketu Maharaj starts in this chapter. So we will read. There are no purpose for any of these verses. So I will just complete from 57 to 61. 61st verse is the last verse of this chapter. So we'll complete the chapter and then we will take on from there. So I will read the verse translation for all these verses. Uttishta taime shishavo vayasyas tvam ahvayanti nrupanadana samvihartum suptaschiram hi ashanaya chabhavan parito bhungshvastanam pibashucho haranasvakanam. So this is the queen of Chitraketu, Kritadyuti. She is speaking this verse. She says, my dear son, you have slept a long time. Now please get up. Your playmates are calling you to play. Since you must be very hungry, please get up and suck my breast and dissipate our lamentation. Naham tanuja dadrishe hatamangalate mugdasmitam mudita vikshanamananabjam kim vagatosya punaranvayamanyalokam Nito granena nashrunomi kalagiraste. My dear son, I am certainly most unfortunate, for I can no longer see your mild smiling. You have closed your eyes forever. I therefore conclude that you have been taken from this planet to another, from which you will not return. My dear son, I can no longer hear your pleasing voice. So in this way, she was lamenting like anything, and it was very pitiful. So Shukadeva Goswami continues the narration. Shri Shuka Ucha Vilapantyamritam Putram Iti Chitra Vilapanaihi Chitraketur Brisham Tapto Mukta Kantorurodaha. Accompanied by his wife, who was thus lamenting for her dead son, King Chitraketu began crying loudly with an open mouth, being greatly aggrieved. Tayor Vilapato Sarve Dampatyo Tadanuvrataha Ruruduhusmanaranaryah Sarvamasida Chetanam. As the king and queen lamented, all their male and female followers joined them in crying. Because of the sudden accident, all the citizens of the kingdom were almost unconscious. Last verse of the chapter. Evam kashmalamapannam nashta samyam anayakam gyatvangira namarshir ajagama sanaradah. So when the great sage Angira understood that the king was almost dead in an ocean of lamentation, he went there with Narada Muni. So Narada Muni, Angira Rishi is going to visit. Angira Rishi is going to visit Chitraketu Maharaj again, but this time not alone, but with Narada Muni. He is going to visit Chitraketu Maharaj. So this brings us to the end of this chapter. Actually, last time I wanted to recap till till whatever we had covered in that particular chapter, but I got stuck up in the first verse only, and we ended up discussing the first verse only in detail, and we did not even reach the second verse, the recap. So this time I decided I will not do it that way. So maybe it was Krishna's plan that I would be completing the chapter today. So actually Krishna probably desired that today is a good day to recap the whole chapter. So I will very quickly recap the whole chapter, and then I will return back to the first section of this chapter, because the first section of this chapter is a very critical section. At least I felt so. So we'll get back and do some discuss a few verses from that particular section. So first, this time I will try to very chastely stick to my plan of covering the recap of this chapter. I'll try my best not to get distracted from that particular what can I say, plan. So recap of the story till now. So Parikshit Maharaj's inquiry about Vritrasur's exaltedness as a devotee. Actually, this first section is a big quicksand, actually, at least for me, because there is so much to discuss. So I have put all this discussion, at the end of the recap, so that we can just focus on the storyline of the chapter first, absorb ourselves, and then move on to discuss some sections from this first part. So Parikshit Maharaj says, Rajas tamas swabhavasya brahman vritrasya papmanah narayane bhagavati katamasi dridamatihi. Oh Brahmana, since he was such a sinful person with the nature of Rajas and Tamas, how could Vritrasur have such firm attraction or attachment to Narayana? This was the question. So last week we discussed on the theme of who becomes an asura and how the three modes act, what are the what is the impact of the three modes, what do they impact, how do they impact, and when the three modes impact, what exactly happens, all of that we discussed. Then they continue, Devanam Shuddha Sattvanam Rishinam cha Amalatmanam Bhaktir Mukunda Charane na Prayenopajayate. Mukunda Charane Bhaktihi, devotion unto the lotus feet of Mukunda, na Prayena Upajayate, it rarely develops. Devanam Shuddha Sattvanam, even in the Devatas, here Shuddha Sattva does not refer to, Shuddha Sattva. Shuddha Sattva actually refers to those whose minds are fairly in mode of goodness, rather than real Vishuddha Sattva as we often talk about. Rishinam cha Amalatmanam, pure devotion to the Supreme Lord, is very rare. Even the demigods and pure sages, they don't get pure devotion. It is very rare. Pure devotional faith is so rare. Even the great sages, many of whose names occur in many of the scriptures, and many of the great demigods who are glorified in the scriptures like Indra, Varuna, etc. Many of them are not pure devotees, even though they are from a material standpoint so exalted actually. So, Rajobis samasankyataha parthivair iha jantavaha tesham ye kechane hante shreyo vai manujadayah. In this material world, there are as many living entities as atoms. Among these living entities, a few are human beings or devatas, and among them, very few practice dharma. Prayo mumukshavaste kechanaiva dvitama mumukshunam sahasreshu kaschin mucheta siddhyati. Then he says that out of those who follow dharma, some of them follow, most of them follow only for some material benefit. Out of a few who follow dharma, very few follow dharma to attain liberation. And amongst many who desire for liberation, only very few actually reach the stage of being a Jivan Mukta. And out of many such persons who become Jivan Muktas, only a few of them actually attain liberation. The reason which we will see little later. Towards the end, we will see why, even despite having reached the stage of Jivan Mukta, why they don't attain liberation. Okay. So then he speaks this famous verse. Muktanam api siddhanam narayana parayanah sudurlabha prashantatma kotishvapi mahamune. O Mahamune, O Shukadeva Goswami, Muktanam api siddhanam, but greater than this Jivan Mukta and greater than those who attain liberation also is Narayana Parayana, devotee of Lord Narayana. Prashantatma, such a devotee who is in Shantarasa or the other rasas, Sudurlabha, is very rare. Kotishu api, even amongst 10 million people, such a person is very rare. So therefore, if even amongst very exalted people, to find a devotee is very rare, what is the chance that such a person could be found, such a devotee could be found in a person who is from the demoniac species, who generally become demons because of their hatred towards Krishna? Okay. So what is the chance that someone could be a devotee from a demoniac species who are actually known to be atheistic, who are proud to be atheistic? So therefore he says, how did sinful Vritrasur, who caused so much suffering to others, become so fixed in Krishna during the raging battle? So how did the most rarest of all rare commodities, that is Bhakti, which is beyond the three gunas, exist in a demon like Vritrasur who was blinded by the three gunas? How is it possible? This is the question. Atrana samshayo bhuyan shrotum kautuhalam prabho ya paurushena samare sahasraksham atoshayat. Oh my dear master, oh Prabho, atrana samshaya, this is my doubt. Shrotum kautuhalam bhuyat, I am very curious to hear yaha paurushena, about Vritrasur, whose heroism samare, on the battlefield, sahasraksham atoshayat, it pleased Indra. I wish to know about this person. I wish to know the past of this person. Who was this Vritrasur? How did he develop this kind of an attraction towards Krishna despite being in an Asura Yoni? How is it possible? So then he is going to now tell the story of Chitraketu Maharaj in response to this. So Suta Goswami said, after hearing Maharaj Parikshit's very intelligent question, Shukadev Goswami, the most powerful sage, thanking him, he spoke these words. Shukadev Goswami said, O king, please listen with attention what I have heard from the mouths of Vyasadev, Narada and Devala. So this particular story of Chitraketu Maharaj was heard by Shukadev Goswami from the mouths of three personalities, Vyasadev, Narada, and Devala. In the prod of Shurasen, there was a king named Chitraketu ruling the entire earth. During his reign, the earth produced all the necessities for life. And this Chitraketu had 10 million wives. 10 million. But even though desiring to produce children, he did not receive a child from any of them. He did not receive a child from any of them. He had 10 million wives. And why did he marry 10 million? He married them in order to have offspring and not just for enjoyment. This is clarified. Okay. So Chitraketu was actually endowed with beauty. He was endowed with magnanimity, youth, high family, education, power, and wealth. But unfortunately, he became the husband of barren wives, and therefore was full of anxiety. And can you believe, if one person marries and if he does not beget a child, and if he marries for a second time and does not beget a child, one would immediately conclude that, oh, he must be impotent or something like that. The problem is with him. Here is a person who married 1 million wives, right? 10 million wives. 10 million wives he married. He is potent, but 10 million of them happen to be barren. I mean, what is a chance? Can you imagine? Even though if there is a 50% chance that someone is barren. So this is unimaginable. What is the probability that 10,000 of them turned out to be barren? Which means clearly it was karmically destined that he must not be getting a child. And despite there was no problem with his own, potency to create a child. His wealth, his queens with attractive eyes, and his control of all lands were not sources of happiness for him. Because he did get a child, everything else, he had everything else. The queens were beautiful. They had a very well endowed kingdom. He had all dominion over his, over his kingdom, but still he was not happy. At that point of time, once upon a time, Angira Rishi managed to reach there. Traveling all over the universe, he came to that place of King Chitraketu Maharaj uninvited. And the word that is used is Yadrichaya. Yadrichaya means for actually out of his own accord. Bhakti Devi, desired that day, Chitraketu Maharaj had to get some sukriti. After properly respecting the sage who was treated as a guest, and the sage was seated very comfortably, Chitraketu Maharaj then worshipped Angira Rishi with a lot of attention. So then he sat next sage on the ground with great humility, and he addressed sage as follows. Chitraketu Maharaj. So the sage addressed Chitraketu Maharaj as follows after receiving all that word. Angira Rishi said, "Do you have good health? Or are you lacking good fortune? Or are you lacking good ministers?" Okay. The happiness of the king depends on the happiness of the ministers, and the happiness of the ministers depends on the happiness of the king. So, as a king, my dear Chitraketu Maharaj, as a king, when you depend upon your associates and follow their instructions, you will be happy. Similarly, when his associates offer their gifts and activities to the king and follow his orders, they will be very happy. like Krishna says, parasparam bhavayantaha shreya param avapsyata. When there is this mutual cooperation, then there is auspiciousness. So when there is mutual cooperation between the kings and his subjects, when the subjects are very submissive, when the king is, when there is this kind of a heavy mutual dependence between the king and the subjects, there is a lot of happiness. So is there a problem with that? Or could it be that are your wives, citizens, counselors, servants, merchants, and the inhabitants of your palace, ministers, provincial governors, landowners, and sons under your control? So this is very critical. All these personalities should be under the control of the king. If the king's mind is fully controlled, everyone is under his control. All the worlds and their controllers offer tribute to him. So mind is under your control, everyone will be under your control. If your mind is not under your control, then you will not be able to bring others under your control. I can very clearly see, my king, that your mind is not pleased either due to yourself or due to others. Your face is pale. It looks like some of your desires are fulfilled. I feel that way. What is it? What is the problem? Please tell me. So, being questioned in this way, Chitraketu Maharaj, out of great humility, he spoke to the sage Angira. He said, actually, you are such a great yogi. What is unknown to great yogis like you? If you can understand what is my external problem, what is my internal problem. You are an exalted person. But still, because you have ordered me to speak, I will explain what is worrying me. You can, antascharo vayu rivatma sakshi. You are like the air. You can very clearly understand what is inside, what is outside. But still, because you have ordered me to speak, I will. He says, my dear sage, just like a person who is afflicted with hunger and thirst, even though you give him a very wonderful reception, you may give him a flower garland, you may offer sandalwood pulp and very good welcoming, but still, or you may even give him a whole empire or opulence, possessions, everything except water and food. He will not be pleased because he is afflicted deeply with hunger and thirst. Similarly, I have everything, but I don't have a son. And that is troubling me much. So now, if there is no son who will offer this pindadan and perform the Arda ceremony for myself and forefathers, how are we going to escape the darkness of hell? It is mentioned, Punnama Naraka Trayate iti Putraha. So what is Putra? Putra means there is, the people who generally, if they have been sinful, they go to a hell called Put. But when the son performs the Arda ceremony, then offers the Pindadan to the Pitrus, when they accept that Pindadan, then they escape that hell. Okay, this is the Karmakandiya procedure. Punnama naratrayate iti putraha. So therefore, if I don't get a son, how will either myself or my ancestors will we be delivered from the hellish conditions? Shukadeva Goswami said, so in response to the request of Maharaj Chitraketu, because Angira understood that this is not the time to give any good instructions and explain him the law of karma. When someone is deeply afflicted, sometimes speak law of karma and it can completely backfire. I have personally observed this, you know. One of my aunts, she has a son, my younger brother, younger cousin. He must be close to 40s now. He's autistic, and she suffers a lot. She really suffers at taking care of him. And once, long time back, I remember we had gone to my cousin sister's marriage. And she was there, and he was troubling her. And one of her uncles, who is actually a very kind-hearted person, very, very low person, very shastrically rooted person. He was speaking to her. He told, prarabdha karma. He just used this word, prarabdha karma. Even though they both share a good relationship, she just shot back. She blasted him, literally. Because, everyone knows this, but then it may be little inappropriate to tell this, because things don't get assimilated like that. And you will see in the case of Kudyuti also, how she would respond. Of course, she already responded for you, but in our recap, she is going to respond. Future tense, it's coming up. So Shukadeva Goswami, he says that Angira Muni understood this is not the right time for occasion. So let us wait. So he says, okay. So Chitraketu Maharaj requested, can you please arrange for a son for me? So Angira Rishi said, okay. He performed a Twashtra Yaga to please for the Devata Twashta, and then through that there was a rice offering offered to Kritadyuti, his first wife. And then the sage told the king, O king, now you will have a son who will be the cause of your harsha and shoka, your jubilation and lamentation. Then the sage left. So now he didn't want to directly tell. Okay. He didn't want to directly tell the complete truth. So he said, the sage thought, why should I tell him now about how his son will be the cause of joy and sorrow? The king will know this at the birth and death of the child, but it is necessary to say unwelcome words now, when in the future the king reproaches me. So he says, I have to give some hint, otherwise later he will reproach, hey, why didn't you tell me? If this was going to be the truth, then I would not have asked you to give me the son. So I will tell him the truth. So he gives a very veiled truth. He very directly tell. So he says, this son will be the cause of your joy and sorrow. Without telling the truth clearly, he left. And the king thought, oh, because my son will have many, many good qualities, I will feel joy. But because I will not be able to control him, because he will have more power than me, therefore I will become sorrowful. So the king thought, oh, that is okay. No problem. I will tolerate that grief, like king thought. He didn't tell that your son is going to die very soon, being poisoned by your own, wives. He didn't realize it. He didn't tell it very clearly. He told he will be the cause of your joy and happiness, joy and sorrow both. And the king thought, okay, he will give me joy because he will be very wonderfully endowed with all good qualities, and he will give me sorrow because he'll become so powerful that I'll not be able to control. He said, this is a good sorrow to have. It's fine. Like that he was thinking. Then Kritadyuti eventually became pregnant. Then gradually her pregnancy developed. In due course of time, she gave birth to a son. So hearing this news, all the denizens of the kingdom became extremely pleased. And just like when a poor man obtains money after great difficulty, his affection for money increases daily. Okay. His, similarly, when King Chitraketu, after great difficulty, he received a son, his affection for the son increased day after day. Okay. The mother also developed great affection for the son. And when this was happening, the other wives, when they saw that how the whole focus is on Kritadyuti and Harsha Shoka, and they were getting completely neglected. So they developed this feverish desire to have a son themselves. We also want a son like that. Chitraketu was so joyful, he engaged all the Brahmanas in offering benedictions to the child. He performed the birth ceremony of the child. He gave a lot of money in charity, and just like a cloud indiscriminately pours water on earth, the generous King Chitraketu, to increase the reputation and longevity of his son, distributed the most valuable things as in charity to all the citizens. Okay, so in the meantime, Chitraketu Maharaj was taking care of his son, and gradually his affection for Kritadyuti all increases, because she was the fortunate one, finally fulfilled this debt, and gradually in this way he lost affection for his other wives. So they started lamenting, and they started developing hatred, because they were sonless. Only Kritadyuti had a son. So therefore, because of which they were not getting any attention of the king. So actually they were criticizing themselves. They thought that a wife who has no sons is considered by her husband to be fit to be sent off to the forest, or she is fit to be criticized like a maid servant by her co-wives. The co-wives who have children, they start treating the other wives who don't have any children like their maid servants. So they thought, what a useless life, what a condemned life. Why should maids serve? Maids who serve master lament, since they gain respect of the master. But we are, so he says that actually maids, actually the real maids, they are still fortunate, because they are at least somewhat respected by the master. But we, the wives, the so-called wives of the king, because we are barren, we are worse than those maid servants. We are actually maids of those maid servants. So they, thinking in this way, developed a very strong hatred towards Kritadyuti and her son. So this hatred went beyond proportion, and they became completely intolerant of Kritadyuti and her son. They poisoned the child and killed the child. So, but Kritadyuti was not aware. She was just walking around the house, walking around the palace, thinking that, oh, today Harsha Shoka seems to be sleeping for longer than what he usually sleeps. So she tells her nurse that, can you please get my son here? He's been sleeping for a long time. And when the maidservant approached the child, she saw that he had already died. So she immediately became scared and distressed, and she started shouting and crying, and she fell to the ground. And hearing that loud voice, Queen came running, and she also saw that the young boy had died. So she started lamenting. She actually fell down unconscious. Hearing that loud crying, all the inhabitants of the palace, they came running. They also became aggrieved. They started crying. And in the meantime, the queens who had administered that poison, they also cried, but pretentiously, because they had done it very secretly. So they also started crying. When then the news reached Chitraketu Maharaj, okay, he almost became blind. He had such deep affection for his son. His lamentation grew like a blazing fire. He could literally not stand only. He was slipping and falling. So he somehow managed to carry himself to the palace of the queen. He literally fell at the child's feet. And he, with a heavy heart, with tearful eyes, and with a choked voice, he could not speak. And when the queen was already in great distress, but when she saw her husband lamenting in this way, she could not tolerate her lamentation. Seeing this, the citizens of that Shurasen province, they became greatly aggrieved. Then she was crying, and the flower garland on her head, it fell down on her head, and her hair became scattered. The tears completely wiped out the kajal in her eyes and wetted her breasts. And then she started criticizing the Lord, because this is natural. She was not naturally atheistic, but when you are helpless, then naturally one puts the blame on Krishna, right? So she says, Aho vidata swamativa balisho yastvatma srishtya pratirupamihase parenu jivatya parasya yamritir viparyayaschet tvamasi dhruva. He says, Aho vidata, O creator, tvam ativa balishah. You are certainly inexperienced in creation. Parenu jivatya parasya yamritir. Why are you so inexperienced? Because when the father is still living, how could the son die? Atma srishti apratirupam iha. Therefore, you are acting in opposition to your laws of creation. Tvam viparyayas dhruvaha paraha asi. But if you are determined, if you say, yes, I will contradict my own laws. If you are determined to contradict your own laws, then I say that from today, you are our enemy. Like that Kritadyuti tells the Supreme Lord. So, so she thinks that the cause of lamentation is the Lord. The cause of him doing this is his foolishness. That's why she calls him Aho Vidata Tvam Eva Balishah. You are certainly foolish. She gives the Lord some advice for his own benefit. She thinks, I will give you some good intelligence now, so that he will not do as he has done again. I will give you some good intelligence so that you don't make this mistake again. So the Lord is inexperienced, childish. Why? Because he has made his own creation improper. Apratirupam, improper. How is it improper? He says, when the elder lives, the child dies. How is it possible? So he says, there is a problem in the creation if the elders cannot create and the children die. So now we cannot create more children and the children have died. If you think that now you will do everything in an opposite way during creation, then you are certainly our enemy. Now, if the Lord says, so what? From today, I have changed my rules, or I have decided that I will not follow the rules. The children will die before parents. This is the rule. So then if that is what you have to say, my dear Lord, then from today you are our enemy, like that Kritadyuti says. So doing what is wrong for you to do, you also show that you are inimical to us by making us suffer. You show our enmity to us by making us suffer like this. Then she says, my dear Lord, if you say, of course, she doesn't say, my dear Lord. She says, O Vidhata, O Creator, if you say there is no rule that the son should not die while father lives, if you say, if the Lord says, look, there is no such rule that the son should always outlive the father. There is no such rule. Then Kritadyuti tells him, if that is the rule, then let birth and death happen by karma. But still, so then let birth and death happen by karma. Karma is enough. What is your need? What is your need? There is no need for God. According to karma, let birth and death happen. You are a redundant commodity. You are there because you can intervene if something inappropriate is happening. If everything is happening according to karma, what is your need? And you have created bonds of affection for increasing your creation. You created attraction between husband and wife. And then you sowed the seed of desire for the child in their heart. And because of that desire, they united and then came a child. And you take the child away. So, and then you have cut those bonds and caused undue suffering. Why did you, first case, sow the seed of desire for a child in the hearts of the parents? You should not have done that. So the Lord responds to Kritadyuti. The Lord says, hey, what is my offense? Why are you criticizing me? Since I only give birth and death according to a jiva's karma. Look, I give birth and death according to a jiva's karma. Why you are criticizing me? Moreover, there is no law that while the son lives, the father dies, or that after the father dies, the son should die, since it depends on karma. There is no such rule. Have I ever told you that the son will always outlive the father? I have never told that. It is all according to karma. Why are you criticizing me? So then Kritadyuti says, oh, everything happens by karma, then what is your duty? What are you doing then? Then let birth and death happen by karma. But then what action do you perform? If everything is mechanical, then what is your role? There is no role for. Then the Lord says, come on. Karma is insentient. How can an insentient karma accomplish anything without the sentient control of the Supreme Lord? Karma is inanimate. You need an animate person to animate this law of karma. Therefore, my presence is needed. So Kritadyuti says, true, no doubt, it is accomplished by you. We agree that. But you have created bonds of affection for increasing your creation. You want your creation to increase. For that, you will sow the seed of devotion in our heart. And then, the seed of devotion. Generally, whenever I talk of seed, I talk about the seed of devotion, and that's become so common to me. So you have sowed the seed of course, Krishna sows the seed of devotion also. Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Beej, no doubt about it. But you have sowed the seed of affection in our heart for the children. For that, we greatly endeavor to get a child. And when the child comes, you take the child away. Why did you sow that seed of affection in our heart in first case? Seeing such misery arising from affection, who will have affection for that? If this continues, my dear Lord, then I am telling you, in this world, no one will have any desire to have children and they will not have affection for children. They will stop having desire for children because you keep taking their children away like this. And without affection for children, how will they survive? You are certainly a fool because of this fault in your creation. This is a big fault in your creation. Therefore, you are a foolish person. So then she thinks, why am I wasting time with this Lord? What has happened has already happened. So then she turns to her dead son. He says, my dear son, you should not give up my company since I am helpless and miserable. Just look at your lamenting father. By you, we could easily cross over dark, hellish existence, which cannot be crossed without a son. Do not go far away with merciless Yamaraj. Please don't go away far away. Don't go far away with this merciless Yamaraj. Please don't do it. So the mother thought, why am I gossiping with the foolish Lord? Why do I not think of the benefit of my son? So she says, oh son, by you, we could cross the hell which is dark and difficult to cross over. The son says, oh, but Yamaraj is taking me to his city. What can I do? She says, no, do not go with this merciless Yamaraj. Say that you don't want to come. Stay back. So in an intense, this is why, Srila Rupa Goswami says, one should train oneself as a sadhana. One should train oneself to not allow one's emotions to too much into extreme proportions. When we succumb to extreme emotions, then we end up doing activities which are inappropriate, which may include offensive activities also. Criticism of Krishna, criticism of devotees, these are offensive. So one should, as a sadhana, a sadhaka should train oneself to do all necessary things which will not allow his emotions to get drifted in to extreme degrees, either joy or distress or anxiety, any of these things. She says, my dear son, please get up. Your playmates are calling you to play. You have slept long enough. Since you must be very hungry, please eat. Suck my breast and dissipate our lamentation. Like that, she has gone totally out of control now. She says, my dear son, I am certainly most unfortunate, for I can no longer see your mild smiling, your joyful eyes and lotus face. Have you gone to the world from which you cannot return? Have you been taken by cruel Yamaraj? Because of this, I can no longer hear your pleasing voice. Has he already done his job? Has he already taken you to his abode? Tell me, why am I not able to hear your voice? So, Shukadeva Goswami continues his narration, and we come to today's verses. So, accompanied by his wife who was thus lamenting, King Chitraketu was greatly aggrieved. He began to cry loudly. And seeing all the male and female followers, they joined them in crying. All the citizens of the kingdom became unconscious, literally. So then Angira understood that the kingdom was without a leader because the leader has become non-functional, dysfunctional now, almost dead because of his distress. So therefore, he took Narada Muni along with him and he came to meet Ketu Maharaj. So this is the summary of this whole chapter. I am happy at least the first part I successfully completed. Now let's go back to the initial section, the first 6-7 verses of this chapter. It's very, very important section of this chapter, where Parikshit expresses his great astonishment that an asura like Vritrasur could be such a great devotee. So he asked this question: So this Vritrasur was sinful. He had the nature of Rajas and Tamas. How could such a Vritrasur have such firm attachment to Lord Narayana? So we saw who becomes an Asura. We tried to understand the validity of Parikshit Maharaj's question. Is it a valid question? And also tried to understand, the three modes, because he says Rajas Tamah Prakritayah, Rajas Tamas Swabhavasya. He had the nature of Rajogun and Tamogun. How could he actually, and then we try to understand how the three modes act and their influence on bhakti and worship. We discussed this in detail. How three modes could affect the pure Shastric faith, which gives rise to pure devotional service and mixed devotional service. How the three modes could affect the swabhava of a sadhaka, because of which he gets particular inclinations and qualities like greed, lust, lethargy, sleep, etc. And how three modes can also affect the non-shastric faith, the sentimental faith, which can give rise to attraction to worship of demigods or yakshas and rakshasas or pretas and bhutaganas. Like that, this theme we discussed in detail, and eventually we did not get time to move on to the second verse. So now he further, Parikshit Maharaj, talking to Shukadev Goswami, he told, Devanam Shuddha Sattvanam Rishidam Cha Amalatmanam Bhaktir Mukunda Charane Naprayenopajayate. So he says, Bhaktir Mukunda Charane, bhakti unto the lotus feet of Lord Mukunda, na prayena upajayate, it rarely develops. Devanam Shuddha Sattvanam, even in the devatas whose minds are predominantly in Sattva-guna, Rishinam cha Amalatmanam, and in the pure-hearted sages, even in such exalted people, it is very rare to see pure bhakti. So Srila Panchakathakur commenting here, he says, Shuddha Sattvanam means in those with Antakaranas having Sattva-guna. Antakaranas means the heart has predominantly Sattva-guna. Of course, even Devatas do not have complete Sattva-guna, which here it means predominant. Jnana develops on its own after purification of Antakarana. This is not so with Bhakti, since without association of devotees, Bhakti does not appear. So that's what he is indicating. So in, when someone practices karma properly, then their heart becomes purified, and when their heart becomes purified, naturally one develops, one develops jnana, and then it leads to liberation. Okay. Tatsvayam yoga samsiddhir kalenatmani vindati, Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita. So that naturally, by the perfection of Nishkama Karma Yoga, one automatically develops jnana. Nahi jnana sadrisham pavitram miha vidyate, tat swayam yoga samsiddhir kalenatmani vindati. Very naturally, by the perfection of Nishkama Karma Yoga, one develops jnana. It is more or less automatic. But in the case of bhakti, without the association of devotees, whatever you may be practicing, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, bhakti is not automatic. So that is very rare. Then Parikshit Maharaj continues, Rajobis samasankyatah partivair iha jantavah tesham ye kechane hante shreyo manujadayah. Iha partivaihi, in this material world, Rajobis samasankyatah jantavah. Rajobihi means dust particles. Samasankyatah means equal in number. Jantavah means jivas. There are as many jivas, as many dust particles are there in this universe. Tesham, of those unlimited number of jivas, kechana manujadaya, only a very few are human beings. Tesham, and amongst those human beings, kechana shreyo ihante, only a few of them practice dharma. Amongst unlimited living entities, amongst unlimited living entities, a few are human beings or devatas, and amongst those few, only a few of them practice dharma. Prayo mumukshavasteesham kechanaiva dvijottama mumukshunam sahasreshu kaschin muccheta siddhyati. So he says, Tesham, out of those who follow dharma, kechana eva prayo mumukshavaha. So many people follow dharma, but most people who follow dharma, they follow dharma for some material benefits, to go to Swarga and enjoy. But amongst those many people who follow dharma, a few of them aspire for liberation. Okay. And amongst thousands of them who may aspire for liberation, only one person becomes a Jivan Mukta. He becomes liberated while still having this body. But even becoming a Jivan Mukta does not guarantee that they will give up this body and achieve actually Mukti, merging in the impersonal Brahma Jyoti. That is not guaranteed. Okay. So, Kaschin Muccheta, only a few of them may become actually liberated. And Siddhyati, and out of many such persons, only one attains the spiritual world. Spiritual world or Brahma Jyoti in this case. So then he speaks this verse. Muktanam api siddhanam narayana parayana sudurlabha prashantatma kotishvapi mahamune. He says, O Mahamune, O Shukadev Goswami, Muktanam api siddhanam. So there are two categories mentioned here. Mukta means a Jivan Mukta. So he is one stage before, so higher than this will be fully liberated in Brahma Jyoti or Vaikunta. Okay. So this is one step before that. So these are Brahma Bhuta. This is the Brahma Bhuta stage. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati. So this is the Brahma Bhuta stage. So this is a Jivan Mukta. Muktanam api dhanam. Greater than even the Muktas and the Siddhas, fully liberated souls, is Narayana Parayana. He is the devotee of Lord Narayana. Prashantatma, such a devotee who is in Shanta and other rasas, Sudurlabha, he is very rare. Kotishu api, even amongst 10 million people, such a person is very rare. Okay. Now, this is a very interesting comment that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti is going to describe here. We will carefully try to understand this commentary. Okay. So here he says, it has been said that among the liberated, one may attain perfection. Many perform sadhana for liberation, but they do not attain liberation. Okay. But those who become liberated or Jivan Mukta do not all become perfect. So a Jivan Mukta may also not attain perfection. So we saw that a materialistic person comes to the platform of Sakama Karma Yoga. By performance of Sakama Karma Yoga, slowly his heart becomes a little bit purified, and he comes to the stage of Nishkama Karma Yoga. So in Sakama Karma Yoga, he wants to enjoy dharmically. Okay. But in Nishkama Karma Yoga, he has identified his goal as liberation. Okay. But he still has anarthas. Okay. So he continues to practice his Varnashrama duties, and by practice of which his heart becomes pure, he becomes qualified for Jnana Yoga. Okay. So a Jnana Yogi's goal is also liberation, and his heart is clean. So he can practice Jnana Sadhana, and Jnana Sadhaka becomes a Jivan Mukta. Okay. So he achieves Jivan Mukta. He becomes a Jivan Mukta. So Jivan Mukta means his heart has become, his heart is completely fixed in Brahman. So at this point, what he should do, what should a Jivan Mukta do? He should do Jnana Sannyas. He should give up the path of Jnana, because that limb of Jnana is still in mode of goodness. But because he has to attain Brahmajyoti, is beyond three modes, therefore this person gives up the Jnana limbs, but does not give up bhakti. You know, whatever secondary bhakti that he was practicing, he should not be giving up that secondary bhakti, but he should give up this jnana. So when this Jivan Mukta gives up this jnana practice, but does not give up bhakti, then at the end of life, this Jivan Mukta becomes, he attains Brahmajyoti. Okay. So this is what the scriptures say. Brahma bhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samas sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param. So after he reaches the stage of Jivan Mukta, he attains the stage of Shuddha Bhakti. Shuddha Bhakti means not Anyabhilashita Shunya Bhakti, but Jnana Karma the Anavrita Bhakti, because he has fully given up the practice of Jnana. Then he says, Bhaktyamam Abhijanati Yavan Yaschasmi Tattvataha. By that bhakti, one completely understands the Supreme Lord in his feature as Brahman. He realizes Supreme Lord in his feature as Brahman. Tatomam tattvato gyatva, and understanding me in my feature as Brahman completely. Vishate tadanantaram, such persons enter or merge in that Brahmajyoti. Okay, like that. But those who become liberated or a Jivan Mukta do not all become perfect. But this is where a Jivan Mukta can also falter. A Jivan Mukta may either not give up his Jnana Sadhana, or sometimes he may give up his Bhakti also along with Jnana Sadhana. So a Jivan Mukta at that stage of Jivan Mukti or after the stage of Jivan Mukti can also falter. So therefore not all Jivan Muktas actually attain perfection of attaining liberation. Only some do, for it is said. So this is one of the verses which is often quoted by our acharyas. It is mentioned, Jivan Mukta api punar bandanaha yanti karmabhihi yad achintya mahashaktau bhagavati aparadinaha. So this is from a book called as Vasana Bhashya, and this is often quoted by our acharyas. So it is mentioned, the Jivan Muktas again come bound by karma. Jivan Mukta api punar bandanaha yanti karmabhi. The Jivan Muktas again become bound by karma when, if they commit offense to the Lord, the possessor of inconceivably great energies, Bhagavati aparadina, if they become offenders. So how they become offenders? Here the explanation that is given is that they think jnana, they consider jnana as just a mere means to attain liberation. So therefore they reject that jnana. Along with that jnana, they reject actually bhakti also. That is a big offense. How could you give up bhakti? How could you kick away bhakti? Kicking away bhakti means kicking away Krishna's antaranga shakti. Right? So therefore, when they kick that away, this Jivan Mukta again becomes bound by karma. Okay. Those who can attain perfection and get liberation, they attain sayujya, merging in the Brahman. Okay. But those who understand, they give up this limb of jnana, but they do not give up this bhakti, they attain sayujya mukti. They merge in the impersonal Brahma Jyoti. Okay. And this person is called a Siddha. And this person is called a Mukta. But Muktanam api Siddhanam Narayana Parayana Sudurlabha. But the devotee of Narayana is rarer than even those liberated persons. So compared to the Jivan Muktas and the liberated person, the devotee of Narayana is rare. Why? Because of his superiority. Or one can consider this in another way. Okay. Now, this you hear carefully. Okay. Hear carefully. He says there are two types of jnana. Okay. There is pure jnana and mixed with bhakti. So jnana is of two types. Okay. Only jnana and jnana mixed with bhakti. This only jnana is useless, right? By pure jnana, those who desire liberation cannot achieve it. It is like beating empty husk for grain. Because, because active principle in the practice of karma jnana yoga is actually bhakti only. So therefore, if one does not practice any limb of bhakti, if they practice the limbs of jnana, then such a person will never get liberation. Okay. So Bhagavatam says, Shreyas Sritim Bhakti Mudasyate Vibho Klishyanti ye Kevala Bodha Labdaye Teshamasau Kleshalaye Vashishyate Anyadyata Stula Tushava Gatinam. So Brahmaji says in his prayers, my dear Lord, Shreyas Sritim, devotion Bhaktim Udasyate, Bhakti performed unto you is Shreyasitim. It is the best path for self-realization. Okay. So here, this verse is actually talking about a person who does not accept bhakti only. Such a person does not, if someone gives up that path and engages in the cultivation of speculative knowledge, pure jnana without even the element of bhakti, he will simply undergo a troublesome process and will not achieve the desired result. It is like beating empty husk from which grain has already been removed. The great, the more you hit, the more you become tired, but you are not going to get any additional grain from it. Okay. So this is of no use. So this pure jnana is of no use. Then coming to this jnana with an element of bhakti, he says jnana mixed with bhakti also has two types. With bhakti, in which one does not respect the Lord's form, considering his form to be material, and with bhakti, in which one respects the Lord's form, not considering it material. So this also is of types. Okay. Where rejection of Lord's form in the sense you think that the Lord has no form only, or when the Lord assumes a form, you think it's an illusory form, or you think the Lord is just like one of ordinary people. Okay. And the second type of jnana with bhakti is where there is acceptance and worship of Lord's form, considering it to be spiritual. Okay. So such person, so this is the second type of jnana mixed with bhakti. Okay. So this person, one who does not accept bhakti only, he does not achieve anything. He achieves only distress. But then jnana mixed with bhakti is the first case is of two types. In the first case, in which the one does not accept the form of the Lord to be real. So he says, by the first type of jnana mixed with bhakti, one will not attain liberation, but one will think one is liberated. Okay. So this is the case of yenye aravindaksha vimukta manina tvayastabhavad avishuddha buddhayah. So this is that case of aravindaksha vimukta manina. Okay. So such bhakti destroys ignorance completely, but only partly produces knowledge, vidya, and then disappears. So the practitioner thinks bhakti must be discarded for attaining liberation. So problem with this person is, here we saw, right? He gives up bhakti also along with jnana, because he thinks bhakti also a material path which needs to be given up. So if you consider bhakti also as a material path, then it is as good as thinking the form of the Lord is also material. It is tantamount to that. So when he does that, what happens? But without bhakti, person cannot attain complete knowledge of Brahman. Thus, he cannot merge into Brahman. Thus, it is said in Gita and also in Bhagavatam with the following verses. Yenye aravindaksha vimukthamaninas payyastabhavad avishuddha buddhayah aruhya krichrena param padam tatah patantyado anadrita yushmadangrayah. So this is the person who reaches till the stage of Jivan Mukta, but after which, because gives up the path of bhakti also, he falls down. Okay. So this is what Prabhupada often quotes to say that people fall from Brahma Jyoti. But in reality, they actually do not fall down from Brahma Jyoti. They fall down from one step before Brahma Jyoti, which is being a Jivan Mukta. That is what this verse says actually. So he says that persons who are falsely under the impression of being liberated, vimukta maninah, without devotional service to the Lord. Why without devotional service? Because they gave it up. Because they gave it up. They may reach up to the point of liberation. Up to the point of liberation is Jivan Mukta. Okay. But because of their impure consciousness, such so-called liberated persons again fall down into material existence. So such persons are this type of, those who reject the Lord's form and those who eventually reject bhakti also. Even though they practiced the bhakti till a particular stage, but then eventually considering bhakti to be material and Krishna's form also to be real, they gave it up along with the process of jnana. So then what happens? They fall down from their position of being a jivata. Okay. So here, this is what Krishna also tells in Bhagavad Gita. Avajananti mam moodha manushim tanumashirita param bhava majananto mamabhuta maheshwaram. The fools deride me, the Lord of all beings, in this eternal human form, not knowing it, my original spiritual form, pure Brahman and higher than all else. The fools deride me, not understanding that my form is transcendental and eternal. So what is the result of rejecting that form of Krishna, considering it to be material? So he says, Mogasha, Moga Karmano, Moga Gana Vichetasaha, Rakshasim, Asurim, Chaiva, Prakritim, Mohinim Taha. So he says, Vichetasaha, among those who cannot distinguish this truth, who cannot accept my personal form to be real. Okay. Mogasha, those who are devotees, they do not attain Salokya and other kinds of mukti. Moga Karmano, those who are karmis do not attain their material fruits if they reject bhakti. Moga Jnana, those who are jnanis do not attain liberation. Okay. And rather, Mohini Prakritim Shritaha. But rather they assume the nature of Rakshasim Asurim Chaiva, of Rakshasas and Asuras, and human beings, of course. Which means they again enter the realm of three modes. That's what it means. Okay. So the meaning of the Gita verses is as follows. What is the meaning of this Gita verses? He says, fools disrespect me for having a human form. Seeing all humans with a material body, they think that my body also is made of matter. They start thinking in that way. In this, they disrespect me. But what is my human body? It is Parambhavam. It is the experience, Vishuddha Sattva. Maheshwaram. It is the supreme cause of all the jivas from Brahma to grass. This body which I have accepted is the cause of all objects made of Prakriti. So if they are my devotees but think in this way, then all their desires to attain me are useless. If someone thinks Krishna's form when he descends to the material world to be material, then all their desires to attain Krishna, but still they worship Krishna using bhakti, through bhakti, they cannot attain that result. And Moga Karmano, if they are karmis, then all their karmas become useless and they do not attain Swarga. Moga Jnana, and if they are Jnanis, then their Jnana becomes useless and they do not achieve liberation. Then what exactly do they attain? They are born in the wombs of Rakshasas. Okay. So he says, by the second type of Jnana mixed with Bhakti. So this is, we have seen till now two things, right? One is Jnana alone without any Bhakti, that gives only in. Jnana with Bhakti, but not accepting the Lord's form, or rejecting the path of the towards the end. Such people may reach till the Jivan Mukta stage, but after reaching Jivan Mukta, they don't attain liberation. They fall down from that position of being a Jivan Mukta. Okay. So then he says, but there is the second type of bhakti where there is jnana mixed with bhakti, but it also where the acceptance of Krishna's form to be eternal and acceptance of the process of bhakti also to be eternal. So he says, by the second type of jnana mixed with bhakti, with belief in the form of the Lord, after the destruction of vidya, since vidya is also a cause of bondage. Okay. So vidya means the elements of jnana. That is vidya. By bhakti devoid of any mixture of jnana, which does not disappear, a person realized tat padartha and attains merging in Brahman. So this person, as we saw, there is, when he moves from Sakama Karma Yoga, so at each stage he gives up something. Okay. When he is practicing Sakama Karma Yoga, there is karma plus bhakti. Okay. There is karma plus bhakti plus desire to enjoy. Okay. When he moves from Sakama Karma Yoga to Nishkama Karma Yoga, there is still karma plus bhakti. He gives up the desire to enjoy. Okay. And when he moves from Nishkama Karma Yoga to Jnana Yoga, okay, so karma becomes Jnana and bhakti remains, and he gives up karma. There is karma sannyas. but eventually, then from that he becomes only jnana and bhakti remains. Then he becomes Jivan Mukta, at which stage he has to give up jnana also. So this is called as jnana sannyas. This is as jnana sannyas. He gives up jnana also. Then he attains liberation in Brahmajyoti. Okay. So he says, by the second type of jnana mixed with bhakti, which belief in the form of the Lord, after the destruction of vidya, because vidya is also a cause of bondage, by bhakti devoid of mixture of jnana, and that bhakti which does not disappear, a person realized Brahman and attains merging in Brahman. This is what Bhagavad Gita says in these two verses. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samas sarveshu bhuteshu. So this is the stage of a Jivan Mukta. Okay. He is Brahma Bhuta. He has attained the stage of Brahman, state of Brahman, Brahman realization. Okay. Prasannatma is a pure soul. Na shochati na kankshati. He does not lament for lament in loss or desire for what he does not have. Okay. Samas sarveshu bhuta. He is equally he looks equally upon all living entities. So at that stage of being a Jivan Mukta, he says, Mad Bhaktim Labate Param, which means Mad Param Bhaktim Labate. He attains pure bhakti. Why? Because he gives up jnana. There is jnana sannyas. Because of giving up that jnana, he attains parabhakti, param bhaktim labate. He attains. Okay. So which means this is not actually prema. This is bhakti after removing this dependence on jnana. This is pure, but still it is weak because all the while it was taking shelter of jnana. It is very weak actually. Okay. Then bhaktya, by that bhakti, being given up jnana, by that bhaktya, mama vijanati. One can know me as Brahman. Yavan yaschasmi tattvataha. One can know me as Brahman in truth. Tato mam tattvato gyatva. Then knowing me as Brahman, by that bhakti, vishate tadanantaram, he merges with me in that Brahmajyoti. Okay. So this, there are many categories of even, in this kind of jnanis, jnana yogis, like that. Amongst jnana yogis, there are those who accept the form to be imaginary and accepts the process of bhakti to be temporary. Or among them, there are people who accept bhakti to be eternal, the form to be eternal, and they practice bhakti, but as a secondary limb, they attain mukti, saiti. However, amongst those who gain perfection at the beginning of realizing Brahman, some person may attain pure bhakti by the mercy of some pure bhakta. Okay. If anywhere down the line, either when someone is a materialist or when he becomes a sakama karma yogi or a nishkama karma yogi or a jnana yogi, ashtanga yogi, anywhere down the line, if they come in touch with a pure devotee and they accumulate agyata sukha from them, then they become pure bhakta. Then by gaining the sweetness of bhakti, he will find merging tasteless and they will surrender to the Lord. Since such bhakti is rarely attained, the word 1,000 is not used, but rather 10 million is used. So till then he was telling sahasreshu, sahasreshu, sahasreshu. Among thousands of such people one may take up. Among thousands of such people one may take. But when it comes to rarity of bhakti, he says, kotishu api. Amongst 10 million such people, a devotee is very rare. So in this way, he explains the rarity of a devotee. Vritrastu sa katam apah sarva lokopatapanah ittam dridamatihi Krishna asit sangrama ulbani. Katam vritrastu papah. How did this sinful Vritrasur, sarva loka upatapanah, who caused so much suffering to others, Krishne ittam drida matihi. How did this Vritrasur, who caused so much suffering to others, become so fixed in Krishna, sangrama ulbani, and that too in the middle of a raging battle? How is it possible? How did most rare bhakti, which is beyond three gunas, exist in a demon like Vritrasur who was blinded by the three gunas? How is this possible? Atra naha samshayo bhuyat shrotum kautuhalam prabho yaha paurushena samare sahasraksham atoshayat. Was there? Atra naha samshaya. This is my doubt. Shrotum kautuhalam bhuyat. I am very curious to hear yaha paurushena about Vritrasur, whose heroism samare sahasraksham atoshayat. It pleased even Brahma. It pleased even Indra in the battlefield, like that. Okay, so like that. So in the he explains. Actually, there was another theme which I wanted to discuss, which is understanding the rarity of bhakti. How is bhakti so rare? Maybe some other day we will discuss, because I wish to give some time for some question and answers and some discussions. So at this point, I will pause for some discussions and question answers. So thank you all very for your patient listening and your enthusiastic participation. There are a few hands up. I will let us follow one protocol. I'll only unmute devotees so that they can speak. LRDD, I get is Lalitangi Radhamani, if I am right.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranams. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Every class of yours is wonderful gems. I mean, we don't deserve this at all, but very, very nice, Prabhuji, explaining all nuances of bhakti, really helping us on this path. So my question is, 2-3 questions, but first is, even, I mean, we are practicing sadhakas. Okay, so how do we know, is there any symptoms to know that I have accepted the Lord's form as eternal? Or, I mean, completely transcendental, like how that you said that alone will take us. And there's one more question. Maybe
we'll take one question at a time, Madhu. Yeah. So first thing is, there may not be complete internalization of this. That is true. We agree with that. Okay, there may not be complete internalization of this, but nevertheless, that is why Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says there are, in dealing with the holy names or the holy deities, there are 3 levels. One is an outright materialist. He has what is called as, okay, I will write it in the next, in the previous. Okay. So he says one is an outright materialist. He has what is called as Jadamaya vision. Okay. So Jadamaya vision means he thinks the holy name is just normal, and he thinks that the holy deity is just a stone. So this is just complete outright material vision. This is materialist vision. Okay. Then there are the sadhaks like us, and our perception of the deity is called as manomaya. Manomaya means there is some theoretical acceptance, faith. On the faith level we accept, but it has not reached the level of practical realization. So we certainly do come and offer prayers in front of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because we do that unless there is an acceptance of a transcendental nature, we would not do it. But these Mayavadi Shastras, where people reject the personal form, they know from the beginning only that all this form is illusory. So even from a theoretical point of view, they know, and they know that it is just for an intermediate, for an intermediate time, I need to do this because I cannot focus on the Brahman form. But for us, we are not like that. We do accept that the form is transcendental. That is why we offer food to the Lord, and we do believe that now this prasadam is certainly different from non-prasadam, which is not offered, because we do have some trust and belief in the at least the purifying potency of the deity. So, but nevertheless, we may not completely act in a way where we feel that the Lord is actually, the deity is actually non-different from the Supreme Lord. Sometimes you may gossip in front of the deity. Sometimes you may forget to close the curtain and we may start eating or honoring prasadam. We may do like that. So this is manomaya, but at least there is some theoretical acceptance. Okay. Then when one becomes a perfected devotee at the stage of bhava or prema, then his approach to the deities and the holy name is called as Chinmaya vision, completely spiritual, where he deals with the deities and the holy names as if they are actually non-different from Krishna. But this Manomaya stage is a precursor to that. So if we don't, we may not have practically realized the Lord's form to be transcendental, but at least we are theoretically willing to accept it. But if there is no theoretical willingness also to accept it, then actually we have not accepted it.
Yeah, that makes sense, Prabhuji. Thank you so much. So the next question is, what does actually mean by giving up the jnana? In that jnana karma dhyanavritam, karma I understand, fruitive results. I think so. If I'm wrong, please correct that also. What does giving up jnana means?
Giving up jnana means there are some limbs of jnana, like meditating on, reading the Upanishads and, some elements of jnana which are described in the Shastras. So some elements of yoga which are described in the Shastras, all those elements of yoga and jnana, which are jnana yogi practices, those limbs should be given up. That is what it means. But the limbs of bhakti, like chanting the holy name, worship of the deities, which also a jnana yogi practices secondary practice, those paths, those should not be given up. That is what it means.
Oh, thank you, Prabhuji. That's why Prabhupada says that if a person is practicing this jnana yoga, at the end it becomes hard for him to even accept bhakti because of his long practice. This is a line that comes in the purport of Kleshodikatarastesham. So it is hard for a person to give up the limbs of jnana after practicing that.
Is that why? Not necessarily, because a jnana yogi is attracted to liberation. He is not attracted to the path of jnana. So he is a mumukshu. He is munir moksha parayan. So his mind is fixed on moksha. Actually, he is very eager to give up the path of jnana to attain moksha. He is not attached. He is attached only to moksha.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay, there is Krishna. I don't know.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Again, you say, scrutinizingly, there is always your classes is scrutinizingly, you always explain. Prabhuji, the question is that what is the depthness? We know that the surrendering process, but sometimes you also know you are not surrendering fully. So how to understand ये बातें कैसे हम समझे कि हम fully surrendered नहीं हैं? तो अगर नहीं है तो कैसे कैसे हम हुए?
How do we understand that we are not fully surrendered? Well, I think this is very easy to understand, right? It is quite easy to understand if we are not fully surrendered.
How to fully surrender?
Well, actually, we can fully surrender by first developing the desire to fully surrender. So the very question that you are asking is the very first step in fully surrendering. So that full surrender comes when we experience Krishna's, the greater we experience Krishna's love, the more we will get the strength to fully surrender. So we have to be patient. As Bhagavatam says, Bhakti Pareyanubhavo Viraktir Anyatra Chaishatrika Ekakala. So Bhakti, along with Bhakti, there is Para Isha, experience of Krishna's warmth, his relationship. When that increases, then that connection to surrender, Manasa Deho Geho Jo Kichu More, Arpilun Tua Pade Nanda Kishore, that conviction comes, after that. So therefore we don't have to get despondent. As long as we have the desire that one day I wish to completely surrender everything, but you surrender gradually according to whatever level you have reached naturally according to your practice of devotion.
So can the married or mother can also surrender fully, Prabhuji?
Yeah, it has nothing to do with one's material designation.
Okay. So what is the meaning of the 18.66 Sarva Dharma Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Bhaja Mukshaya Masucha? So Sarva Dharma Parityaja.
Sarva Dharman Parityaja means give up all considerations of whether this is Varnashrama Dharma, whether it is this Dharma, that Dharma, give up all kinds of Dharma and just be willing to practice Bhakti according to whatever situation that you are in. That's what it means.
So can you correct me if I'm understanding correctly? Like without using own intelligence, what our Srila Prabhupada made a process in every ISKCON temple, like सुबह से शाम तक जो संध्या तक जो होते हैं भक्ति का जो लिम्स होते हैं, अगर हम उसको पालन करते हैं तो वही होते हैं fully surrender.
Yeah, that is full surrender. Hare Krishna. Preeti Vilasani Mat.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for always giving such nice classes. Very elaborate. Thank you for elaborating on Muktanam Api Siddhanam. It was interesting to understand that. And also quoting this particular verse. I had 3 questions. I'll make it really quick because I just wanted clarification on the parts that I missed hearing. So while you were explaining this Muktanam Api Siddhanam, what did you explain Siddhanam to mean, Prabhu? I missed that.
Those who have already merged in the Brahma Jyoti, attained complete perfection.
Okay, Muktanam are those who are Jivan Muktas.
Jivan Muktas, yeah.
Muktanam are those who have already attained the Brahma. Okay, and hold on. Yeah. So thank you for that. There was one verse that you quoted. I think this was Jivan Mukta Api Punar Bandhan. You mentioned the source. I didn't hear it properly. Can you please repeat?
Vasana Bhashya.
Vasana Bhashya. Is it a part of some?
I don't know what that literature is, but it is often quoted by our acharyas.
Yes, okay, Prabhu. Thank you for that. And the other question I had was just to repeat, when you were discussing the conversation between Kritadyuti and the Lord or the Providence, I had two questions there. One is when she blames Providence, does it directly mean that she's first? I think the series was she's blaming the Providence and then she's blaming the Lord. So what would be the difference, or were both the same?
Well, in one sense, she indicates that if karma is doing everything, then I mean, she cannot blame providence as such, because it's a, she also realizes that it is a inanimate thing. So definitely she, at least that much she agrees that providence is under the control of Krishna. And if Krishna would say that, oh, why are you blaming me? You know, it's all happening according to karma. He says, so then what? Then why are you there? You know, there is no need for you. So she actually accepts that, you know, providence is under Krishna's control. So you can always, so what he's telling is, can't you make exceptions here? You know, that's what she is hoping, you know. You know, she's making Krishna to accept that providence is under your control. So you can make exceptions. Why can't you make an exception here to see that we are suffering like that?
So here providence is equivalent to karma. That's how it is.
Yeah.
Matched. Then later when she says that affection is the only thing that keeps, I don't understand how you can serve. There was one in the conversation that you had spoken. It was like, why should we be living without affection or something like that? I didn't understand the explanation for that.
Yeah, she says that if there is no affectionate bond, then where is the impetus to live?
What does that mean?
Well, if there is no affectionate bond, then there is no impetus to live in this world. You know, that there must be some affectionate bond that needs to be there so that one wishes to live. That even Krishna says, even, you know, without affectionate bonds, even the objects of sense gratification are not very appealing, because that's what Arjuna tells, that if all my relatives die and I inherit all the kingdom and the three worlds and everything, what am I going to do with them? With whom am I going to enjoy it? Like that.
So which means that it is an underlying desire, is the driving force of living here. Are we talking in that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Prabhu. Yeah, that's all I had, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Very, very nice analysis. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Oh, I'm sorry.
No problem. It was also very clear. So thank you so much for clarifying so many points. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Sukhakar Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Balaram Prabhu, so wonderful. Your classes were so absorbing, so detailed. You recap the whole thing last time, this time, everything. So just want to know the pure devotional service. Been doing devotional service for so many years, and understood the fact that all my qualifications, chartered accountant, cost accountant, multinational company, it doesn't make any sense. Is my voice audible?
Your voice a little bit breaking in between, Prabhu, but yeah, I'm able to hear you.
Yeah. So there's a battery problem. So what I'm telling is, I want to go back home, back to God in this life itself. So I'm trying to do the best devotional service, preaching, whatever way possible. But still, that feeling is there that Sarva Upadi Vinirmuktam, that is not going. It's there, yes, all well settled, but nothing is settled unless we go back to God. Because whatever money you have, whatever property you have, whatever good daughter, son-in-law, grandson, this is not going to touch the lotus feet of Krishna. So how to get out of all these things and become totally realize that you are the soul, you are not the body?
Well, again, I will quote the same verse, that the same answer. Yes, at least we have theoretically now understood that these things have no value. So even though we have received the new upadhi of being Krishna Das or Sukakar Krishna Das. So we have received this new upadhi, but still the inertia of the old upadhis that we have accumulated over many lifetimes, that will remain for a while. And that virakti towards those old upadhis, that will develop only in proportion to our progress in bhakti. Bhakti, pareshanubhavo, viraktir anyatra tesha trika ekakala. So to the extent that we raise ourselves from the level of anartha nivritti to nishta to ruchi to asakti to bhava to prema, to that extent our attraction to the older upadhis that we had collected many millions of lifetimes, that attachment to those older upadhis will weaken and weaken and weaken gradually. Vidyate hridaya grantis chidyante sarvashaya shiyante chasya karmani drishta evatmanishwari. So it's a gradual process. So yeah, as long as we diligently apply ourselves to practicing Krishna consciousness, gradually over a period of time, our attachment to the old upadhis will slowly start going off.
So that absorption chanting is not coming. We are trying to understand that first attentive chanting, listening the chanting, then awareness. Why I am chanting? Because I want to do seva for Krishna and Radharaman, and I am begging to Radharani. But the third level, that is after Nama, the Shuddha Nam, that is not coming. That is, I'm not forgetting whole thing that what I am doing. I should just selflessly chanting. That level is not coming.
Well, that comes, Srila Rupa Goswami says in Upadeshamrit, Syat Krishna Nama Charitadi Sitapya Vidya Pittopatapta Rasanasya na Rochikanu Intu Adarad Anudinam Kalusaiva Jushta Swadvi Kramad Bhavati. So he says that, yes, don't expect taste first. That's what that verse says. So he says, Ruchi comes only after Nishta. It is unreasonable to expect Ruchi before that. So he says, first on your side, Adarad Anudinam Lusaiva Jushta. He says that with great respect means avoiding all kinds of 10 types of Namaparad. We have to diligently avoid the 10 types of Namaparad. That is Adarad. And then Anudinam means every day and in a very regulated way. If we practice chanting and the other sadhana gradually over a period of time, Swadvi Kramad Bhavati, gradually it becomes very tasty. So that taste comes only when there is regulation, respect and regularity in our practice. So, but generally our natural tendency is, well, I am sparking this respect, regularity, etc. that I am not taking them seriously because I'm waiting for taste. The day I get taste, you just see. No one can stop me from chanting regularly. But now I am not chanting because I'm not getting taste. Like that is our natural human tendency. That is why Srila Rupa Goswami said, no. Taste is a reward for diligent, respectful chanting of the holy names. So Adarad Anudinam Kalusaiva Jushta Swadvi Kramad Bhavati. So Ruchi comes after Nishta. That's what he says.
With the 10 offense, I'm trying to follow. But the 11th inattentive chanting, that is not happening fully. I'm seeing the 10 offense, plus the devotees, all these I'm avoiding. But that attentive chanting, just selflessly chanting, and so much deep attention is not coming. The 11th.
Yeah, that will to the extent that our heart is free of anarthas, to that extent we will be able to deeply focus on chanting. So gradually over a period of time, with whatever attention we can muster, if we chant, then gradually more and more anartha nivritti will happen, and we will be more and more attentively we will be able to chant.
Very, very, very tough life in the sense. Go back home, the goal is there, but I'm praying to Krishna, crying to Krishna that please help me, that I don't want to come back. Because it's so much miserable. And what is happening all around, today I went and saw a message that by 2040, the whole world become Islamic. So then Krishna consciousness will be thrown out. So you see in Bangalore, the whole Siddharama going into the masjid and praying with them. What is this happening that they want to make everyone like this? So is not Krishna watching all these things? Krishna knows, no, the Sanatan Dharma is this. So I'm just crying inside. I know that Krishna Rakshitya is there, but still all around Modi trying to do something, they're throwing away, and they are themselves fighting within themselves. And I don't know what, from Jinnah's time, the whole thing, again the Congress coming back. So all these things are really disturbing. Though I should not be attached. I don't see news. But now, every day in the WhatsApp, when I'm doing some Krishna consciousness, those things are coming. The 4 girls, they're preaching wrong and all. So I don't know how to just give the whole world. We want again Prabhupada to come back and do it, the whole thing. Then only the whole world will again come back. Sorry, I'm disturbed so much. I should not ask all these questions, but I'm just mind boggled.
Hare Krishna, Babu. Thank you for your questions.
Sorry, Prabhu. I should not ask all these things, but somehow my mind is very bewildered.
Yeah. Natural, Prabhu, that is the nature of the material world.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna. Yes. Okay, the 3-4 more hands up. Today I got a very clear instruction that Prabhuji, the class ends at 8 p.m. Pacific time. So what do I think the host should take a call on this.
Prabhuji, there are more raised hands. Prabhuji, they keep raising hand, and each person is asking more than one question. So if we pick to one question, then we can satisfy all these 4 raised hands with one question. I mean, 8 o'clock is the last time, Prabhuji. That is our call time. That is what we do. I'm so sorry about it.
Yeah, perfect, Mataji. So we will end the discussion here. I apologize for not being able to take the other questions. Maybe in next session we will definitely try to accommodate. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I'm very sorry. Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyascha patithanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo Ananta Koti Vaishnavritti ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, His Grace Balaram Shakti Prabhuji ki jai.
Thank you so much for your wonderful class, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, closing the call, dear